Hi, everyone. Welcome to Common Sense Explains, a space where we talk to experts at Common Sense Media and friends of the organization to get a better understanding of what's happening in the world of media and tech and how that impacts our kids and families. I'm Lorena Taboas, your host. We just released a research report that provides new insights into the very understudied role that pornography plays in teens' lives. The manager of our research program and co-author of the report, Dr. Supreet Mann, is going to walk us through the findings. Welcome, Supreet. Before we jump into the findings, can you explain why Common Sense Media thought it was important to research how teens are interacting with pornography online?
Sure. Hi, Lorena. Thanks for having me. Pornography exposure and access is something that really scares a lot of parents and caregivers. The internet has made pornography much more accessible to adults and children alike, and the media often portrays pornography as a major public health concern that can have lasting impacts on children and teens. So at Common Sense, we wanted to see what the online pornography landscape actually looks like in terms of exposure. We wanted to see how adolescents feel about pornography generally and whether they're talking to others about what they are experiencing online.
There were a lot of surprising findings in the report, but I think one of the main ones that at least surprised me as a mom is that the majority of the teens surveyed said they had been exposed to pornography content by the time that they were 13. Did this surprise you at all?
I think the fact that they've been exposed by itself may not be surprising. So remember that exposure in this case means both on purpose, so intentionally seeking out pornography, and accidental exposure, like if a friend is to show their peer a pornographic image on their phone or send something to their social media inbox, or even just scrolling through social media and stumbling across a pornographic video. This doesn't seem so different from a kid sneaking a pornographic magazine to school, for example. I think what might be more striking to some here is comparing the frequency of exposure. So how many times in a day they're viewing new pornographic content. The ubiquity of the internet and the constant flow of material means that they may be experiencing much higher quantities of pornographic material than ever before.
So the age, the frequency, those are all things that the report kind of goes into. And that's what is concerning to parents, is how young and how frequent kids are being exposed to pornographic content. What are some of those, I guess, potentially harmful lessons kids and teens could be learning when they're exposed to this kind of content?
That's a great question and really gets to the heart of why we wanted to do some of this research. We wanted to figure out what are they actually seeing. And we asked teens about some of the content that they're seeing in online pornography. Specifically, we asked about violence, aggression, and stereotypes. And more than half of teen pornography viewers in the survey reported that they had seen pornography depicting rape, choking, or someone in pain. And teens also reported encountering racial and ethnic stereotypes in pornography. So among those teens that are seeing porn, again, considering both accidental and intentional exposure, a lot of them are seeing some pretty disturbing content. But there might be a silver lining here. We also asked teen pornography viewers if they felt that pornography accurately shows sex, and only 27% agreed with that statement. So it might be that these teens are able to understand that what they're watching is not a good reflection of reality.
Right. So as the new report shows, there's a high chance that kids will come across pornography online. Setting up filters on the devices and platforms kids use is a really good way to keep them from seeing sexually explicit videos and images, especially for younger kids. How can parents do that? Let me explain. Setting up browser filters like Google Safe Search will help block explicit content that can pop up on websites. Using parental controls like Apple's Screen Time can also help restrict specific apps, websites, and games. If parents want to take things a step further, some internet service providers offer content filters that can very effectively limit exposure to pornography and other harmful content. While these are all great, no tool is 100% effective. That's why it's so important that parents and educators step in to help kids navigate online spaces. We can all play our part to help kids become better, critical consumers. So, Supreet, we see that there's a lot of options out there for parents to protect their kids from harmful content, but it's also really important to talk about how teens are engaging with pornography online. The report focuses quite a bit on whether or not teens are seeking out pornography intentionally, or if they're just kind of like stumbling upon it online. So what does the data show, and what is the story behind that?
Yeah, the data shows both. We found that in our sample of teens, 44% report ever viewing pornography intentionally, and 58% report ever viewing it unintentionally or by accident. And about a third of teens said they viewed it both accidentally and on purpose. But even for those who said that they had only ever seen pornography accidentally, so never seeking it out on purpose, more than half of them said that they have been exposed to pornography in the past week, suggesting that even accidental exposure might be a really common experience for these teens.
So the relationship that teens have with pornography is very complex. Teens are obviously not a monolith. For example, the survey reveals that consumption is a lot higher among LGBTQ plus teens. Can you explain why that might be?
Yeah, for this study, we were really interested in the way that LGBTQ plus youth are using pornography because prior research suggests that they might use it differently than their peers. And our results, like you said, showed that rates of intentional pornography consumption were higher for teens who identified as LGBTQ plus. And these teens were also more likely to say that they view pornography to find out what arouses and excites them. So overall, this then suggests that pornography may be used in different ways by LGBTQ plus teens, such as to help in sexual exploration, maybe because they're not always able to learn about sex from parents or in school. So it definitely lays the groundwork for some future research about why they're using pornography differently. But this report helped to shed light on the fact that they are.
And I think that brings up an important point, which is that teens maybe don't feel comfortable talking to their parents about this, but the data shows that, this it's helpful for parents to have those conversations with kids. What do you hope parents take away from this research report and this data?
Yeah, this was one of our really big takeaways from the report. We were really interested in the ways that parents can help their children navigate this online space. And we found that more than half the teens in our sample have talked to a trusted adult or parent about relationships, sex, birth control, but much fewer have talked to these same adults about pornography. And many teens in our survey reported that they wish they could have conversations about online pornography with a trusted adult, but they either felt like they didn't know how to initiate that conversation or they didn't know who to turn to. And the younger teens in our sample, the 13 and 14-year-olds, were especially likely to say that they'd want to discuss what they've seen online with an adult, but are either not sure how to have these conversations or with whom to have these conversations.
What advice do you give to those parents who are listening and kind of reading all of this new information and they're like, yeah, it's uncomfortable and it's awkward to have these conversations with kids about, the kind of content that they're seeing online? How can a parent who feels uncomfortable in this situation take that initiative and engage with their kids about this?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of teens want to have these conversations with their parents. They just don't know how. So I think then parents should try to step up and initiate some of these conversations, at least open the door for their teens to come to them and have these talks. And I think that this can be done in a few different ways, but sharing the report might be one of those ways to start. If parents read through some of these main findings with their teens, they can talk to their teens about whether they feel this reflects what the teens are seeing and what their peers are seeing. And for parents of younger children, just be aware that this is happening and that exposure might be coming earlier than you expect. And be prepared to have conversations as questions arise and encourage your children, younger teens, older teens, to have open conversations about what they're seeing online.
Thanks so much, Supreet, for walking us through the findings of this new report. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. You can find our report about teens and pornography and conversation starters for parents and caregivers linked in this episode description. And make sure to subscribe to our channel to hear from common sense experts on all the media and tech topics you need to know about. Until next time.